tell him that?
Well, I think Renata is a very nice woman.
I'm not jealous.
You're jealous of Agustin. Who did I marry? It's you, Geronimo.
Our society's very cruel about these kinds of things. And I don't want my daughter to be the talk of the town.
And I don't care about what society thinks. That does not matter to me.
But it matters to me. Relax, relax.
I know you're here. Come on, Karina.
That's right, she's here, and she's going to stay here.
Please, calm down.
Timeless love.
We started with 25 universities. We are now left with the 4 best universities fighting for the top prize.
We did a story about forces impeding the end of FGM in Korea.
My team and I did a story on FGM in West Pokot County.
Nyembe za Uwasi. It's a story about cutters changing the narrative of FGM in Garissa County.
This is a story that you've never seen before.
We're inviting you, the viewer, to be part of our judging panel by voting for your top story.
We are Nation, Africa's independent media brand. We are committed to empowering all Africans, from the young to the old, from the curious to the educated, and from the heart of the cities to the rural areas. We are Nation. Join us, because if you want to get far, you do it together. Nation. Empower Africa.
Here at NMG, we are working very hard to ensure your favorite publications, Daily Nation, Business Daily, Taifa Leo, and the East African are readily available. In a bid to support the efforts to prevent the transmission of COVID-19, NMG has ensured our staff, our distributors, and their staff adhere to set guidelines. At our printing plant, all staff are required to wash their hands before entering the factory and must be wearing a mask. All workers either change their clothes on entering the factory or wear an overcoat. We are keeping doors open to avoid our staff touching door handles repeatedly. With our automated printing, contact with the newspaper is kept to a minimum, and at the packing process, the staff observe social distancing. Vehicles used to transport the newspapers are disinfected daily before the newspapers are loaded, and our delivery staff all wear masks and wash their hands regularly. Our vendors ensure that they sanitize every time they handle money and wear their masks at all times. NMG is proud to be able to safely meet your information needs. Stay safe, stay informed with our favorite NMG publications.
Story time, it's story time.
Long time ago, no animals had legs, and only human beings had legs because Makoro had given them.
Everybody sit down.
All the animals were sad and worried.
Sit down quietly.
Bam! The other chickens laughed out loud.
Listen carefully.
Join us every Monday with Grace Ekirapa on the Nighttime Tales.
It's story time.
This is NTV.
A very good afternoon to you. It is 1 o'clock on this 11th day of January 2021. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. Thanks very much for joining us on this news broadcast. This afternoon, we'll be coming to you live from Kiambu County with NTV's Gina Kirori. She's got the very latest on the detention of Lawrence Warunge, a suspect that murdered his family, allegedly. We'll bring you more on that. And also, we'll be live from the NTV newsroom with NTV's Zainab Ismail, who has been following the proceedings this morning regarding the handover of power from the Chief Justice to now the Acting Chief Justice. Let's take you to that top story. And in his final address to the nation before proceeding to retirement, immediate former Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga has called on leaders and the judiciary to maintain fidelity to the rule of law and hold the best interest of the nation at heart. Maraga has officially left the judiciary after 4 years in charge of the institution, a tenure punctuated by conflict with the executive. He has handed over to DCJ Lady Justice Philomena Mwilu, who will hold the position in an acting capacity until a substantive appointment is made. Well, as I mentioned, our reporter Zainab Ismail has been at the Supreme Court this morning and joins us live now from the newsroom to talk about the event. Zainab, a rather elaborate ceremony and also an historic day.
Well, indeed, Smriti, an elaborate ceremony, like you said, and a very historical moment for the judiciary. The Supreme Court has today pronounced CJ Maraga as retired officially. He handed over the instruments of power to his deputy, Philomena Mwilu, who is now taking over in acting capacity as at the strike of midnight. He did retire because of attaining the age of 70, and that is the capping of all judges at the Supreme Court. And right before he handed over the instruments of power, he did preside over a special court session that was held in his honor, actually. And some of the instruments of power that he handed over to the DCJ include, and let me just mention, was a copy of one of the original Constitution of Kenya, a booklet that is just among the 3 original booklets in the country. We also handed over an institutional flag. Together with that was a status report of the judiciary. This includes the number of judges that are there, the number of courts that are yet to be built, or the number of courts that have been built during his tenure, and of course where he left, where he's living as the CJ, and what will be needed to ensure that there is a smooth transition to even the next Chief Justice will be taking over. The CJ in his final speech spoke of a number of issues, actually not taking back, pushing back against or rather slamming what he said was politicians claiming that they're better than judges. But one of the most important issues that the retired CJ spoke about was fidelity to the rule of law. Here's a glimpse or part of the speech of what he spoke about. Let's listen in.
My fellow colleagues and judges, the people of Kenya have constitutionally bestowed upon you to be the guardians of our Constitution, to uphold the rule of law. I have heard sometimes politicians say that they are better off because they are elected. I want to tell you that according to our constitutional architecture, they have no better power than what you have. It is the people of Kenya who gave you the judicial authority to exercise it for their own good. I want to urge that you don't let the people of Kenya down. I'm sure you live in this country and you have seen the drums of political war being beaten already. My colleagues, if you waver if you waver and do the wrong thing, and this country descends into chaos, God will never forgive you.
Well, a very stern warning and advice to the colleagues he leaves behind at the judiciary, judges, lawyers, other legal minds within that arm of government, talking about that, talking about the politics that we're seeing in the country, and ensuring and urging them to ensure that they hold firm the belief and the principles of the judiciary. Well, away from that, the acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, who's also the Deputy Chief Justice and the Vice President of the Supreme Court, will now be taking over in the next 6 months before the Judicial Service Commission appoints a substantive office holder. She spoke of a number of issues, mostly thanking the retired Chief Justice for the service in the judiciary and some of the initiatives he's taken to ensure that the judiciary has gone and moved forward. She talked about his legacy, and she also talked about, ensuring that there's a proper transition to even the next person who will be taking over and succeeding retired Chief Justice David Maraga. Here's what she had to say.
For whatever period that it will please God for me to serve as the acting Chief Justice, I shall ensure that we further entrench and build on your legacy, and that the judiciary shall forge ahead and continue its journey of transformation. Importantly, during this transition, we must consolidate, organize, and ensure that the incoming Chief Justice has the information, the structure, tools, and resources to hit the ground running and propel our institution to even greater heights. No doubt, I speak for the leadership and all of us in the judiciary.
The acting Chief Justice there, Philomena Mwilu, will be taking over for the next 6 months before a new substantive Chief Justice is appointed by the Judicial Service Commission. And just to take us back a little bit back on the tenure of the Chief Justice David Maraga, is the fact that he has had quite a challenging time, especially with the executive coming. There's been a lot of tension, and this is with regards to the budgetary cuts that we've seen from the executive to the judiciary, which the underfunding has been quite a challenge for the judiciary. CJ Maraga has spoken about this a number of times, and openly and publicly we have seen the executive coming out to slam and and avoiding and just not adhering to some of the court orders, and maybe just away from that as well. What we've seen is in terms of the budgetary allocation was the fact that CJ Maraga had actually recommended the capping of the judiciary's allocation to 1.5% of the national budget, and this was championing for the establishment of the judiciary funds to ensure that there's autonomy of the judiciary. He's spoken so much about having an independent judiciary, speaking about the tension that is between the judiciary and the executive arm of the government. And maybe one of the issues that the Chief Justice did before he retired was asking the executive, or rather asking the legislature, to look into actually just making sure that the 2/3 gender principle has been achieved, and if not that, to dissolve parliament. That created a lot of tension between the three arms of government. And there is a lot to speak about the tenure of the CJ. We'll be giving you more details in our subsequent bulletins. Well, away from that, I'll be handing you off now to Smriti Vidyarthi back in studio.
Zain, thanks for all those details. Certainly more later on. Elsewhere now, a Kiambu court has ordered the detention of Lawrence Warunge, the main suspect in the murder of 4 members of his family and a labourer, for a further 14 days to allow detectives to complete investigations. A post-mortem examination on the slain 5 is underway at the Kangata Memorial Funeral Home to establish the cause of death. Our reporter Ngina Kirori is at the funeral home at the moment. Ngina, what more can you tell us?
All right, thank you, Smriti. Now, as you so rightly put it, police officers arrived as early as 9 a.m. today to be able to conduct investigations or the post-mortem examination, rather, on the 4 members of the Warunge family, as well as a mason who was attached to them. As we've also mentioned, the Kiambu court will be holding Lawrence Warunge and his girlfriend, Sarah Mudhoni, for the next 14 days at the Gigiri police station to allow them to conduct further investigations into the matter. One of the processes being the post-mortem examination, which is taking place here at the Kenyatta Memorial Funeral Home. And we know that government pathologist Dr. Johansen Odor is present and is leading the post-mortem examination, as well as family members and friends from James Kinyanjui, who was the mason who was attached to the family at the time, as well as family and friends of the Warunge family. And speaking to some of the friends and family of the late James Kinyanjui earlier, they say that he was temporarily living in the quarters of the Warunge home. And on the day of the murder, he had actually gone back to his original home to ask his landlord if he could live there while he would pay off his rent, but his landlord then referred him back to the Warunge home. Also speaking to some of the family and friends of the Warunge family, they say that his mother had actually tried to seek counseling services for him before the murder because she had noticed a change in her son's behavior and had noticed that he was going into a depressive state and had tried to seek him counseling services, her herself also being within the psychology sector. But as the post-mortem examination continues to be conducted, some of the family and friends are told to return back at 2:30 p.m. to be able to receive the proper report of what happened. While that's undergoing, we'll be collecting more details to provide in our subsequent bulletins. Smriti.
Ngina Kirori, thanks very much coming to us live from Kiambu. Now, National Assembly Majority Whip Irungu Kangata has spoken publicly for the first time about the controversial letter he wrote to President Uhuru Kenyatta, indicating that the Building Bridges initiative is not popular among Mount Kenya voters. Kangata says he acted in good faith and did not in any way intend to disrespect the president. He maintains that he stands by his sentiments.
I have expressed my regret for the leakage of that letter, but notwithstanding that fact, the discussion arising out of that letter appears to vindicate my strong view that there are people who are not being candid and frank on matters BBI, particularly the level of approval rating of BBI in our region of Mount Kenya. We came to a realization that it is something that has been boiling in that region, the Mount Kenya region, but people are somehow fearful to say it, to publicly bring that issue before the public, or rather to inform the government that there's a problem, a very deep-rooted problem of BBI ratings in our region that needs to be addressed.
I should say Senate Majority Whip Irungu Kangata speaking there, not National Assembly Majority Whip. Beg your pardon for that. Now, a section of residents in Kingorani, that's in Mombasa County, are accusing the county government of invading their plots and using them to create access roads in the estate. One of the residents went to court seeking redress over the matter, and after a 5-year battle in the corridors of justice, the Environment and Land Court delivered its judgment, granting him full access to the property. Kevin Mutai with the details.
Abdallah Mohammed has been sick and bedridden for some time now, and his medical condition continues to worsen by the day. It is here in Kingorani, Majengo in Mombasa, where he has called home for 27 years after acquiring several properties. But in 2015, his woes began when the county government moved in and hived off some of his plots to put up a modern access road because the area was a road reserve.
Ule ugandamizaji wa mwisho kabisa. Wewe wanyang'anywa ardhi au leo wauziwa ardhi, kesho wanyang'anywa.
It's been 27 years since Mohammed acquired the properties in Kingorani, where he's been living with his family to date. The 60-year-old man is now at the brink of losing everything due to the staring threats from a bank demanding repayment of loans he secured using the property as collateral.
Koti iliamua ardhi ni yetu. In fact, walitumia jina la enjoy your land. Sasa tunauliza enjoyment inakuja in form of what? We cannot use our land. We cannot sell. We cannot do anything on it. Where is the enjoyment that we are supposed to be getting from this land?
On the other hand, the county questions how the plots were alienated by residents as private properties but remained to serve the public as access roads over the years.
Imeniathiri kiafya, imeniathiri mimi. Kwanza kodi napeleka wanachukua, hawachi.
Kama kuna compulsory acquisition inafanyika na mkono wote wa serikali, lazima wenyeji walipwe. Sasa hiyo sheria ilienda wapi kwa upande wetu sisi?
Abdallah filed another application seeking the court to compel the county government to repay his loans amounting to 56 million shillings for him to surrender the plots, but the court declined to issue the directive. Instead of fighting it to be reverted to its former dusty, dilapidated state, he was told to enjoy the improvements made on his access road.
Hatuwezi hata kuuza, hatuwezi kujenga, hatuwezi kufanya lolote, hatuna haki kwenye hizi ploti.
They have now obtained temporary orders barring the bank from taking any adverse action that may alienate the properties. Kevin Mutai, NTV in Mombasa.
And that story takes us to a break on NTV at 1 more. When we return, stay with us.
Breaking news from Molfix. Let's see what they're developing right now.
Fancy's just for me. It really feels very comfy.
Molfix pants with anatomic fit technology. New Molfix pants, an invention from babies for babies.
You should also try Molfix.
I came for you. Oh, now stop playing around and let's go home.
Somebody help!
Shut up! I've had it up to here with Miguel. Always looking over my shoulder and blaming me for everything that goes wrong. Don't touch me! Stay still! How can this animal be your friend? It's one thing to be his friend, but I'm not required to change his behavior. Well, then you should learn to choose your friends better.
Thanks for staying with us. To the coast now, and public hospitals in Mombasa remain deserted as doctors, nurses and clinical officers continue to stay away from work. Mombasa residents are now depending on the private hospitals or neighbouring counties for treatment as the medical fraternity in the region demand that the return to work formula deal must be implemented. NTV's Kevin Mutai joins us live from the coast now in Mombasa. Kevin, how has this impacted medical services in Mombasa?
Well, Smriti, good afternoon. The situation is bad here in Mombasa County as all public hospitals remain deserted and the common mwananchi continues to suffer. This is because the doctors being led by their union KMPDU continue being at loggerheads with the county administration officials. This is because of the return to work formula deal that was signed in October 2020, and the doctors want the county to fully implement, and some of the things that the doctors are agitating for is the promotions, the full payment of statutory deductions, as well as honoring the deal to return the doctors who were sacked last week in Mombasa. 86 of them were sacked here, and the doctors were here on Saturday, led by KMPDU Secretary General Chibanzi Mochonda, among other officials, including the Kenya Medical Association officials, who held a meeting and resolved that their colleagues from the private sector will, from today, Monday, join them in their industrial action. But what we have witnessed so far is that medical services are going on as usual in private hospitals. I was on a phone call with one of the proprietors in a private facility here in Mombasa, and she revealed to me that they have not received any threats with regards to that particular concern as issued by the doctors on Saturday. And we are also informed that this particular issue is currently being, has elicited a lot of reactions and is currently being discussed between the union officials and the county administrations. Yesterday, county officers from Mombasa came out to state their terms and, of course, asked the doctors to go back to work as they give room to allow for more negotiations on how they are going to allow and agree on all the in resolving all the issues that have been going on. But on this other side, the county are saying that they've put their demands on the table and there are issues that are facing them. One of them being the challenges in terms of handling the finances. Currently, the county is saying that out of the 7 billion shareable revenue that it receives from the National Treasury, the county has a ballooning wage bill of 5 billion shillings. So this means that the 2 billion shillings remaining has to be splitted across all the sectors, and this includes the health sector. And now are appealing to doctors. They are appealing to doctors to come on the table and try to understand, as they also figure out on how they're going to reward all these issues that they want addressed before resuming to work. So the situation is that bad here in Mombasa County, especially in public hospitals where patients are really suffering and they are forced to go to neighboring counties or seek the medical services from private facilities. And of course, this is a situation that we're keeping an eye on, and definitely we'll be updating our viewers on what transpires, because we're expecting to hear from the union and the doctors today. Back to you, Smriti.
Right, thanks for that, Kevin. Certainly hope that the matter is addressed sooner rather than later. NTV's Kevin Mutai coming to us live from the county of Mombasa. Now, the Kenya Muslim National Advisory Council, KEMNAC, is urging political leaders to desist from disrespecting President Uhuru Kenyatta and politicizing the Building Bridges initiative. KEMNAC says the BBI is an all-inclusive document that charts the path to peace and tranquility in the country.
Wakenya wadumishe amani wakati huu ambao tumeanza harakati za kufanya kampeni BBI. Rais Uhuru Kenyatta hajawa mkabila, na ambalo analisema si ukabila, ni BBI inafanya kazi namna hii, kwamba inaita inclusivity. BBI inaleta inclusivity, kwamba kila kabila ina haki sawa ya kupata nafasi ya kutawala Kenya, si Kalenjin, Kikuyu, Central Rift Valley.
Now, Matapato Ward landowners in Kajiado's Central Sub-County have joined hands to stop a 2.6 billion shilling power line project by the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO. The residents claim they've not received the 30% compensation for their land in agreement, which KETRACO has offered in line with the National Land Commission.
It's a cry for justice. Literally, they're upset that their land was taken away without their consent.
Sababu wamekuwa wakivunja sheria na wameshindwa kufuata haki ya kuheshimu mali yetu. Mashamba yetu imeharibiwa, miti za watoto wetu zimeharibiwa na hatujalipwa. Na hata haoneshi dalili kwamba kotini ilisema tuzungumuze tuelewane kwa bei ya mashamba yetu. Wamekataa kabisa na haoneshi hata dalili ya kuja kuongea na sisi.
KETRACO workers were forced to stop working as the landowners stormed the grounds. Despite intense lobbying by local leaders pushing for 35% compensation, they are yet to reach an agreement. They claim the parcels of land were undervalued.
Kama atafuata sheria na kulipa sisi vitu yetu ile meagana naye endelea na nakubali.
Some of the landowners have now moved to court to petition KETRACO to review the compensation rates before proceeding with the project. The locals are set to benefit from 3 million shillings in the form of corporate social responsibility from KETRACO. Several villages are also expected to benefit from electricity supply, and the economy of the area will get a boost. Helen Aura, NTV.
Effective 31st of January 2021, all limited liability companies will be required to maintain a register of beneficial owners and file the same with the Registrar of Companies. This is in line with the October 2020 announcement by the Registrar of Companies, which was made through a public notice following recommendation from the Financial Action Task Force on International Standards on Combating Money Laundering and the Financing of Terrorism. This marks yet another step by the government to combat illicit financial flows, which are made under the guise of fictitious business activity by companies whose ownership remains unknown. The Companies Act defines a beneficial owner as, quote, the natural person who ultimately owns or controls a legal person or on whose behalf transactions are conducted. Let's shift focus now to a little bit of sports news, and Carlos Vinicius scored a first-half hat-trick as Tottenham humiliated non-league Marine 5-0 at Rossett Park to book their place in the FA Cup fourth round. Vinicius scored his hat-trick inside 13 minutes. Other Spurs goals were scored by his fellow Brazilian Lucas Moura before the break, and a first senior goal by 16-year-old substitute Alfie Davina in the second half completed the win. Meanwhile, Brighton goalkeeper Jason Steele was the hero with 4 penalty saves as they beat Newport 4-3 in an FA Cup third-round shootout at Rodney Parade after a 1-1 draw inside 120 minutes. Steele saved from Josh Sheehan, Mickey Demetrio, Liam Shepherd and Scott Bennett as Brighton won a 14-penalty shootout. Tonight, Stockport County host West Ham United at Edgley Park.
He's off the line!
To the Serie A now, and defending champions Juventus beat Sassuolo 3-1 at Juventus Stadium last night to remain in touch in the Serie A title race. Danilo put Juve ahead in the 50th minute after shooting from 25 yards before Gregory Dreffel levelled for Sassuolo in the 58th minute. Aaron Ramsey scored the second goal for Juventus in the 82nd minute. Cristiano Ronaldo struck the third goal in the injury time. Sassuolo played the second half with 10 men after Pedro Obiang was sent off for a bad challenge on Federico Chiesa. This was a third successive victory for Juve, who climbed to fourth, 7 points behind leaders AC Milan, who they beat 3-1 on Wednesday, but with a game in hand. Tonight, Spezia host Sampdoria.
And that mini goal drought didn't last for long. It's cruel on Sassuolo, but Juve make absolutely sure. Juve having huffed and puffed a bit here, having led. It finishes in Turin. Juventus 3.
And in the Spanish La Liga, Valencia beat Real Valladolid 1-0 at Jose Zorrilla Stadium. Carlos Soler Barragan scored the only goal for Valencia in the 76th minute. Meanwhile, Cadiz registered a 3-1 win over Alaves as Levante beat Eibar 2-1. Tonight, Elche take on Getafe, while SD Huesca welcome Real Betis. Leaders Atletico Madrid will host Sevilla at Wanda Metropolitano on Tuesday night.
Joselu scoring after Fally had been adjudged to reduced to 10 men, and immediately the home side take full advantage of that. It's Anthony Lozano's slide, but it was to be Cadiz this afternoon. Lozano setting up Negredo here, making space for himself and finishing brilliantly past Pacheco, showing all of his class. Carranza, final score, Cadiz 3, Alaves 1.
More sports news, business news and national news coming your way tonight at 9 o'clock, and before that NTV Jioni at 7 o'clock. Do be sure you stay tuned to NTV. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. Have a good afternoon.